And the reason I say that, because when we're talking about the tax part, the property tax, who's going to get hit the hardest? That's why that's why Ward 13 take the hardest hit. It'll be 13, and then 12, I think, at 11 and 10. Those are and Ward 1. Those are the ones that take most of the property tax hits when they have to raise these property tax. And it's important to have somebody there that's really going to represent the citizens of Minneapolis. So that's why I'm trying to get to that point. Now, Kris, can you name three of your main issues, 3 or 4 if you want to, of the main issues, and then let's knock them off one at a time. What's the main issue that you're going to really be concentrated on?
Well, obviously, almost the main. It should be pretty clear that my main issue is property taxes and fiscal responsibility at the city, and that is it's just a huge issue, and I think it can be dealt with. I talk to a lot of people, and people are like, "Yeah, I agree with you, Kris, and totally." But I mean, what can you do? Where can you go with that? Can you do it? Well, I don't know on the city council, but I know what I can do, and I can go there and make proposals, and I can point out the places where I think we can make a difference. Because, and the other thing people say about these property taxes, they say, well, and it's a fair point, is they say, it's all the cuts in local government aid that have caused these high property taxes. But, for one, economy's down. I've heard from past council members that local government aid fluctuates with the economy. They didn't plan for that. Okay, economy isn't going to boom forever. The other thing is they did these 8% increases for the last 7 years. Many of those years, local government aid was going up. So when they tell you our property taxes are high because of cuts in local government aid, well, they raised these property taxes while local government aid was going up. They were high already. They're high already right now, and we're getting the cuts. So, yeah, they're going to skyrocket even more because they've been irresponsible in managing this city.
And what about what's your thinking in education in Minneapolis? Which I know the city, but you have, they say, that, the school district responsible for education, but I think we all are responsible for it. What's, in Southwest, they do pretty good over in Southwest, but what about the rest of the city? How do we bring the education gap together for the whole city of Minneapolis?
This is a great question. I think the gap that you're talking about is, for one, the school board or the teachers, they can't sit there and tell us that, well, the reason we're not educating these kids is because they come from poor homes. Okay, all right, maybe that makes it more difficult, but we can't accept that as an excuse for not educating these kids. That's the mission as the government school system has taken on, is to educate all children. And if they aren't educating those kids, then the rest of it is irrelevant, because those are the ones that, we justify having a public school system to help. And if they're failing those kids, it's, unfathomable to me. For one, we can't accept excuses from the school district. We can't accept excuses. The teachers are great, but if you let in an excuse, if you kind of make it acceptable to accept an excuse, then pretty soon that excuse becomes acceptable, and then there's an excuse not to try any harder or not to try different things. And I'm not saying they're not trying different things, but we got to get, I think, more school choice in more charter schools in Minneapolis, responsible charter schools. I know in the north side there's been, as Kris Stewart on the school board called them poverty pimps, taking advantage of the charter school system. And so, I do believe that, if we look at something like what Chicago is doing with their school district, the Renaissance 2010 project, where they are actually going out and going through these communities and making the parents make a choice for their kid. What school, what type of school, where do you want them to go? And there's options for them. And they're working with the school teachers unions and stuff, and they're allowing a lot more school choice in the Chicago district. And it's a really interesting program. Just you can check it out on the internet, Renaissance 2010. I think that would be a model that Minneapolis could look at.
And as far as your public safety goal?
I think, one thing when I talk to people in Southwest, I mean, and people have been supporting, they say, well, crime isn't really an issue in Southwest. But you know, and I was a total believer crime isn't an issue, but just 2 weeks ago, you know, I leave my, you know, sometimes you leave your car unlocked on accident, and sometimes, you know, when you've become accustomed to living one way, my car got rifled through and scattered stuff all over, and they took a GPS unit out of there and stuff. So I was like, and then I told someone else about it, and they're like, oh yeah, that happened up on Xerxes to a bunch of people, and it's like, you know, so crime is an issue, and I think big issues with the police department, of course, and I'm a big advocate for, you know, personal rights, property rights, civil rights, and I'm going to be that on the city council, and I think that's going to help in all across the city. And these police abuses, I think, are a problem, and they're not just a problem with civil rights; they're also a fiscal problem for the city because they always end up costing them an awful lot of money.
And I'm glad you said that because over the last few years, over 28 million, last 5 years, $28 million paid out in settlements, and the city doesn't have insurance. But how do we hold them accountable? What's the method to hold them accountable? That's a lot of money, $28 million, and the citizens in Southwest must know that it comes out. It comes out of your pocket.
I hear you, and that $28 million, you know, wouldn't that be kind of a nice amount for the city to have, given that they're complaining about like a $20 million cut in local government aid? Mm-hmm. You know, yeah. Isn't that nice? But I do think you make a great point, and I think that it comes down to the culture of government in Minneapolis, and that is, you know, if you have a mayor appointing a police chief, and there's kind of this acceptance of these practices, and I heard that, you know, I heard a quote, and I don't know completely the validity of, but I trust the person who told me, and that is that, you know, they had inquired to the city about this Metro Gang Strike Force and the members of the Minneapolis Police Department that were involved in that, and they said, oh, you know, don't worry about that, they're back at their regular jobs now. And I was like, you know, these guys should probably be in jail, a lot of them, and that's, I don't, maybe that's too strong a statement, but I mean, that type, what they were doing there is worse than the common street criminal, because they're doing it with the force of government behind them, backing them up, and that is the type of stuff that scares everyone. That's police state stuff that terrifies people. And those gang strike forces, you know, they come and bust into people's homes, and you know, and everyone, you know, you think it's a good thing until you see what it does, and you see that almost never does anything come of those busts and raids. You know, they get a little pot, and they, you know, put everyone through a rigmarole, break up families, and, you know, rarely does anything ever come of these. And I think, you know, maybe this isn't an issue for the city, but I think the whole country has to reconsider this war on drugs.
And when you say that, I love what you're saying, because, you know, in today's paper today, we're taping on a Wednesday. This airs Sunday, and in today's paper, it's exactly that. One of the gang strike force members was fired about where they were taking cell phones and using them, taking them for their personal use. They were taking people TVs out their house and taking them home. They were taking cars from people and rounded up the cars. I was over at the state legislature over in St. Paul, Kris, and they were talking about they was taking all these cars and taking them to the car lot, to one car dealership, and take, you know, 20, 30 cars over there, sell them to them, and, you know, taking their cars, you know, seizure, that's what they call seizing the cars, taking them over there, selling them, then taking their family to go buy the cars. And the reason I'm saying it to you, because I hope when you're elected city council, that I don't think the people in the 13th ward actually knows what's going on, because like you said earlier, it's not all the way good over there, where, you know, it's some crime going on, but they don't understand the magnitude of the crime going on in other parts of the city, because the city council won't let that part get out, or the mayor. It's a communication thing about the rest of the city. That